Welcome to Rock the Diploma's ELA 30-2 online diploma preparation session on the literary exploration. We are going to be carrying on with booklet 1. So once again, we have our first page here of the Part A diploma booklet. And as you can see, we are going to be working with the literary exploration, which is worth 25% of the total examination mark. So to begin, we'll be looking at the January 2017 literary exploration, and this particular exam had an excerpt from the novel Rock and Roll Jihad. And you know it's an excerpt because it has the word from, so it is from the novel Rock and Roll Jihad. You can also see with any of these novel excerpts that there is a little bit of a preamble. So it says the narrator of this excerpt is musician Salman Ahmad. He describes the experience of attending his first rock concert as a new immigrant to America in the 1970s. I'll also point out here that we're going to be bouncing around a little bit within booklet number 1 here, and we are currently on page 8, and we're moving around just because we're only focusing on the literary exploration pages. So on the actual assignment page here, you can see that there's a little bit of a description of the novel excerpt. So it says, in this excerpt, the narrator describes his experience at a rock concert as a defining moment in his life. It was here that he discovered his passion and decided to dedicate his life to a career in music. So it's important to always look for any little preambles or descriptions of that prompting text in case you're planning on also addressing that in your writing. Now, the topic is always phrased the same way. What is your opinion of the idea that, and in this case, an individual's life can be altered by a particular experience? You'll also see the other instructions here for the literary exploration. It says discuss a character from literature or film that you've studied in 30-2. Again, you can choose to discuss more than one character. Whether that's a good idea or not depends on how much information you have to say about a character. Make sure that these details are in fact supporting your idea. And it says present your ideas in prose. And really what they're after here is an analytical essay or an analytical personal hybrid essay. So it's going to be having a thesis statement or a controlling idea, your argument. You're going to be breaking up the response into logical paragraphs that work to prove your thesis or controlling idea. So the next page here is set aside for your planning. So it says you should take about 10 minutes for this, which is perfectly fair because you want to come up with your idea. And it says write your controlling idea or your thesis statement, your argument essentially on these lines. You put down the characters' names and the text and the author down here. And then you've got this room right here for planning. Then on the very bottom, you see it says write the title of your chosen literary text on the back cover of this examination booklet. And when you have your actual diploma exam, you can see here on the back, it's got this box for literary text. That's where you would write down the title and also the author of the text that you'll be exploring in the literary exploration. And that's for sorting purposes in Edmonton on the marking floor, because the only people who will mark your literary exploration are people who actively teach that text. So it's a quick way for markers to be able to determine, is there any point in opening up this booklet? Can I mark this assignment? So always fill that in for them. So now jumping ahead to page 22 in your booklets, we're going to take a quick look at the rubric. So just like with the visual reflection, you have these scoring areas and they are set up in these 20% increments. We've already discussed insufficient, so we don't want to talk about that again. But we will be taking a peek here at, first of all, thought and support. So this is looking at the idea that you create and how well you support it from the text and or your own life and also possibly that prompting text. So it goes everywhere from poor, which is a very minimal understanding of the topic and the text. Everything's underdeveloped. It is not effective at proving any sort of an argument. Then you've got your limited, and that's it seems obvious that you know the topic, but you don't really effectively work with it. You don't properly support it. The support is overgeneralized, it's inconsistent, or it's not really relevant. So you have your 20 and your 40%, then you have your 60% or your satisfactory, and this is a very straightforward idea. It works. You have support. The support might be a little bit generalized, but essentially, especially having an understanding of the text, you know that it works to prove the point. Then you have your proficient or your 80%, and this is a fairly thoughtful idea, and it's got specific support that works to prove the argument. And then excellent, you have this insightful idea that's interesting, really demonstrates the significance of the topic, and really well chosen support. So that is our thought and support. Our second area is form and structure, and this is looking at the flow and evolution of your idea throughout, and then also how you physically constructed the response. So again, this goes right from the pour, which is this absent controlling idea or unifying effect. It's ineffective, it's incoherent, it's sort of like a smattering of random points tossed down onto the page. It doesn't work as a proper argument and convincing response. Then you've got your 40% or your limited, and this is where you've got a controlling idea that it's evident, we can tell you're trying to do something, but the unity falters frequently. So you kind of go off on tangents and you fail to properly explain certain things, and it falls apart, which is unfortunate. Then you've got your 60% or your satisfactory, and this is where you have this evident attempt to actually prove something and move through the response. It might fall apart just a little bit on occasion, but generally it works. Your 80% are proficient. There's a controlling idea and a unifying effect that's sustained throughout the response, and the development is coherent and it works quite well. Then you have your 100% or your excellent, and this is this focused controlling idea or unifying effect that's skillfully sustained throughout. It really works to effectively and eloquently prove your idea. And next we've got matters of choice. And choice it's really sort of how the response sounds. We're looking at a lot of the writing style here. So we're looking at things such as diction, we're looking at syntax, and also the creation of voice throughout. And this again moves from the poor through excellent, and it's everywhere from inaccurate diction, over generalized diction, an ineffective voice. It doesn't work, it's difficult to read. Up into that limited or the 40%, and the diction is imprecise or it's inappropriate. There's an unclear voice, and it's sort of difficult to understand at times. It's sort of all over the place, but it's better than the poor. Then we've got the satisfactory or the 60%, and in here the diction is appropriate, but it's general. There are definitely better words that could have been employed, but otherwise there is a clear voice that runs throughout. For the proficient or the 80%, the diction is specific and it's generally effective. There's this competent voice that is created. And then you've got the 100% or the excellent. The diction is precise, it's effective. The many sentences have been successfully structured for effect and sometimes even polished and well written with a convincing voice. Then looking at matters of correctness, and this is really kind of like how it reads. So we're looking at things like sentence construction, word usage, grammar, mechanics, which is punctuation, spelling, capitalization, things like that. And again, in this rubric, we have this note to consider the proportion of error in terms of the complexity and length. So again, moving from poor through excellent, you've got the 20% here. There are jarring errors that impede communication. Some of this response simply can't be understood because of the range of errors. Moving up into the 40% or limited, this is sort of where at times a marker will have to reread some of it to really understand what's being said, but generally speaking, we can make it through it. Looking at the satisfactory or the 60%, there's control of the basics. There can be minor errors, but it's not really throwing us off too much. We can make it through. It works. The communication is clear. That proficient or 80%, there's competent control of correct sentence construction, usage, grammar, and mechanics. And it says that minor errors are understandable considering the circumstances of first draft writing in a pressure situation. It's okay, everyone. And then we have the excellent or the 100%. There's confident control of correct sentence construction. The relative insignificance of errors, and that's important, relative insignificance of error. You can have mistakes, but they are relatively insignificant given everything else that was going on there. It's really nicely written. So, surviving the diploma, looking at the literary exploration. So with step 1 here, we want to deal with the topic. So remember, this is what we call a guided response, not an open response. So you are given a topic to work with by Alberta Ed. So this is unlike the visual reflection where it's open and you get to sort of determine what topic you want to work with. Now, because you're given a topic to work with for this assignment, the best place to start is dealing with the topic. You want to start by breaking it down into smaller chunks so that you can be sure that you understand each chunk or prong of the topic. So locate the key words, the most important words in the topic. Circle them or highlight them. Use your dictionary to define them, to make sure that you fully understand them. Remember, even though you think you know what each of these words means, you should still define each word so that you have a thorough understanding to work with. Use your thesaurus to find some synonyms to work with so that you don't repeatedly use the same words over and over again throughout your response. Show the marker that you have a vocabulary and that you have a variety in your choice of diction. There is room for you to record your breakdown of the topic, definitions of keywords, and synonyms on the bottom half of the page where you find the topic. So you want to make sure to take advantage of that. Put the topic in your own words so that it makes sense to you. Also ask yourself, what does this topic make you think of in regards to your own life? Can you relate to or connect to this topic personally at all? Does the topic make you think of any experiences from your personal life? If so, jot those thoughts down on the planning sheet. Now look at the world around you and ask yourself, what does this topic make me think of in terms of the world around me, the past, the present, today? Feel free to ponder these questions generally, or perhaps you think of a specific example, either from the past or from today, that connects to the topic. And understand that your goal is to be sure that you leave this step number 1, fully understanding what the question is asking you. Now, step 2. This is a brainstorming pit stop. So now, at this point, you want to make a list of the texts that you've studied. Choose from the novels, films, short stories, plays, or longer nonfiction texts that you've studied in class. You're going to write your literary exploration on only one piece of literature from class. If you try to do more than that, you're really going to water down the quality of the exploration, which diminishes and makes worse your grade. It's better to use fewer things and do a solid job of it. So ask yourself, which piece of literature have you studied this year that best connects to the topic? You want to make sure you understand that text really well. Consider the protagonist. Point form brainstorm how the topic connects to that character. Can you create an argument discussing this topic in connection to the character? Out of the literature you've prepared for this exam and studied this year, which text connects the best to the topic given? And then make a decision. So you think about all these texts, choose only one to write your literary exploration on, and of course you may choose to discuss more than one character if you wish. Really make that brain work. Now we're on to step 3, where you're going to fill in the planning sheet. So once you've made your choice of text, fill in the planning sheet for the diploma marker, where the arrows below will be, so it's clear which text and which character you're going to be discussing. Explain in the box provided at the bottom of the assignment page on the planning sheet which character or characters you intend to discuss and how that person connects to the topic. This gives your marker a glimpse into your thoughts and makes that person's job easier in understanding what you're trying to say. So as you can see here, we've got the planning page. We've got the controlling idea that you're going to put down. But here, we're not going to do it in this step. This is going to be in step 6 where you do this. So just hang off on that. But for now, put down the character and the text and the author. Fill this in, and of course, as I said, write this in on the back cover of the examination booklet. the title of the text, and whoever wrote it. All right, we're on to step 4, where you're going to read the provided excerpt, and that's from that first page of the literary exploration assignment. So read the one-page nonfiction excerpt provided in your exam booklet by Alberta Learning. Take the time to read the context help at the top of the page before the reading begins. Give yourself some contextual information, as well as the context help and hint written at the top of the next page, right above the topic. It'll say some of the same stuff, but it'll be a little bit narrowed because it's going to help connect it to the actual topic. Read slowly and carefully, being an active participant, critical reader. You know what the topic is, so you want to be looking for it in that text, which means you're actively reading. Feel free to write on the excerpt, make notes as you read, highlight, etc. They're never reusing this booklet. This is for you and this exam only. So if there's anything in there that's going to be useful, feel free to mark it up. Once you're finished reading, ask yourself, do I understand this excerpt enough to write a paragraph on it? If so, feel free to do so. If not, let's not. Remember, you don't have to write on this. You can if you want to. It's an additional tool available to you. But you need to make sure that you understand it and that it's going to work for connecting to the topic and helping prove your argument. So this here is this actual the prompting text. Go through and have a read of it right now. So now that you understand the topic and you've read through the provided excerpt, it's time to move on to step 5, which is creating your theme thesis controlling idea. So remember, this is what we call a guided response, not an open response. So you're given a topic to work with by Alberta Learning. And this is different than the visual reflection because that's an open response where you're coming up with your own topic. You're not doing that here. You're working with the one provided to you. So remember that this assignment, much like all 30-1 and 30-2 diploma assignments, is very much a theme-based assignment. So the question you're asked to address is, again, it's always phrased the same way. What is your opinion of the idea that, and then you've got the topic. So now, let's think about the big picture behind this assignment and what your job is. So Alberta Learning is prompting you for your thoughts, your ideas, your opinion when asking for your opinion about the idea or the topic that they give you. They're asking you what your opinion is about the topic provided. They're asking you what your thoughts are regarding this topic. They're asking you to connect the topic to a piece of literature of your choice. So Alberta Learning is really asking you to come up with a general statement, a universal idea about this topic. This is no different than coming up with a theme-based idea or statement that a piece of literature is aiming to get across to the reader concerning the topic given. So here are some sample topics. What's your opinion of the idea that the ability to face hardship is an essential human quality? What is your opinion of the idea that our beliefs are influenced by the actions of others? What is your opinion of the idea that an individual's life can be altered by a particular experience? And what is your opinion of the idea that courage is an important quality? So think of it this way. When you answer the question, what is your opinion of the idea that courage is an important quality, phrase your answer, your ideas, thoughts, opinion in a general statement. It's very theme-based in your wording. So why are we calling your idea a theme thesis controlling idea? When you answer the question that Alberta Learning gives you, you will respond generally, creating a universal idea, a general statement, a theme-based idea. This theme-based idea will be the focus of your entire response. Therefore, it is your controlling idea. And your job will be to prove this controlling idea. Anytime you're asked to prove an idea in a piece of writing, what do you call the idea that you're proving? A thesis. So how do you prove your theme thesis controlling idea? With supporting evidence. And this can come from the text that you're choosing to write your literary exploration on, the text, which is the one-page excerpt that Alberta Learning will give you at the start of this response, your own life experience, so this can be a personal connection that will add to and help prove your thought, and then also the world around you. So this could be some sort of larger philosophical thought. So to recap, Your idea is a theme-based statement, generally worded universal idea, a working thesis that you aim to prove with discussion of supporting evidence, and a controlling idea that will be the focus for your entire response. So, step 6, editing your theme thesis controlling idea. You want your theme thesis controlling idea to be as clear as possible. Now, there are several ways to start off or to template your theme thesis controlling idea. Feel free to use the wording that Alberta Learning gives you. My opinion about, abbreviate the topic in the blank, is that now state your idea. Example, my opinion about courage is that, whatever your opinion is, or my opinion about our beliefs being influenced by the actions of others is that, now you state your idea. You could also use a tag statement. So in the film, The Shawshank Redemption, filmmaker Frank Darabont develops the idea that, whatever your idea is, and you could also take the approach of, the main insight developed in the film concerning, abbreviate the topic, is that, now present your idea. So now that you have this idea, you go back to that planning page and you fill in your completed, edited controlling idea on the planning sheet. It's up at the top of the planning sheet, so you fill it in there. Now we're on to step 7, which is planning your supporting evidence. So now that you have a theme thesis controlling idea to prove, you need to point form plan out your supporting evidence. You have to prove it. Never expect writing a response to come easy if you haven't planned out your supporting evidence. When you take the time to plan it out, you can simply use that point form planning as a checklist as you write. That way you'll make sure that it flows, that it makes sense, and that you don't miss anything. So you already decided in step 2 which literature you were going to use and which characters you were going to discuss. Now you need to plan out what supporting evidence specifically you can use to prove your theme thesis controlling idea. You must use a character from the literature you've chosen to write about, and you may choose to discuss more than one character. So for the rest of your supporting evidence, ask yourself the following questions. What else could I use for supporting evidence to prove my theme thesis controlling idea? Do I want to write a paragraph about the nonfiction excerpt provided? Do I want to connect personally, discussing a time in your life, an experience that you've been through that connects to the topic and your theme thesis controlling idea? Would you like to do a personal connection? Now remember that you don't actually have to. Never force a personal connection or make something up. If you can relate to the topic or your theme thesis controlling idea personally, great, go ahead and do it. If you can't, leave it out. Lastly, ask yourself, is there anything you could discuss as far as supporting evidence from the world around you today or in the past? Remember, this can be specific or simply commenting generally and philosophically. And now, step 8, actually writing the response. So if you're handwriting, you don't need to double space your written work. As long as it's legible, easy, and clear to read, that's all that we need. Now, if you are typing, please double space your written work. Use size 12 font. Now, if you want to type it all out single spaced initially because that's easier for you to see, that's fine. Then you double space it prior to printing. Use your writing checklist and your planning. Write your response based on that. Now remember that your goal is to prove your theme-based idea, thesis controlling idea, by discussing details, supporting evidence, from the literature you chose to write about and the character you decided to discuss. Be sure to avoid simply listing what happens in the text you're writing about. You don't want just a plot summary. That's not going to work to prove your idea. Your job is to explore, discuss, and explain how the character and details from the text prove your theme, thesis, and controlling idea. Remember this simple approach to use as your guide when using supporting evidence. P, make your point. This point or idea will naturally be a part of your theme, thesis, controlling idea. Think of this as simply, what are you trying to say or prove? P, provide proof. Supporting evidence, details from the text about the character. You already planned this out in step 6. And EC, explain and connect back. Explain how your supporting evidence connects back to your theme, thesis, or controlling idea. And now, a very important step, step 9, where you're editing your response. This is making it the best that it can be. So remember the importance of editing. You have to make time for this. Remember, it's your goal to prove your theme, thesis, controlling idea using supporting evidence from your chosen text and or your personal life and or the world around you. Be sure you have enough supporting evidence and that you accomplish your goal. If you're typing, I encourage you to ask your diploma supervisor to print off the document, and then you can edit it on the paper. You can fill in anything you need to do. Then you can go back if you wish and type it all out, any of those changes on the actual document. And then you're going to put both the rough draft and the finished draft inside your exam booklet. Remember to read out loud in your head to try to catch your errors. If you're trying to hear your response, you'll hear your missed words, again, sort of in your brain. You'll hear your awkward sentences, incorrect verb tense, run-on sentences, etc. Try to hear your voice speaking it out to you. If you're handwriting, just edit right on the response. Feel free to cross things out, add sentences, etc. Diploma markers are just happy that you're editing and making it better. It doesn't have to look perfect. And make sure to give your response a title. Your writing deserves a title. Choose one that is relevant, on topic, and engaging for your marker. Go back and consider your thesis or controlling idea. Are you focused on a single argument, or did you go off on a tangent at any point? Does your response follow through with your intended idea? Examine the voice. Is it appropriate for the prose form? Is it consistent? Look at the diction, the vocabulary that you're using. Look at the tone. Is it appropriate for the prose form? Is it formal, authoritative, confident? Is it appropriate for your content or message? And look at the mechanics. Look at the spelling, the grammar, the punctuation, the run-on sentences. Fix what you need to. And once all that's done, you're pretty much good to go. It's time for step 10, printing and stapling. So have your diploma supervisor print off your response, staple it into the examination booklet on the appropriate page, and it'll say staple it here. Place your rough draft behind a final draft. So if you did print that first copy off and then edit it, put it in there, but clearly write rough draft on it and make sure it's behind the final draft. Then move on to the third assignment, the persuasive writing and context assignment. Please remember not to straddle more than one assignment at a time. Do not hop back and forth working on each of the 3 assignments. You're going to split your focus and you're going to miss important things in each of them. It doesn't end well. So just focus on one assignment at a time, complete one fully, following all of the appropriate steps, and then move on to the next one. So let's just dive a little bit more in depth on some of the basics here. The introduction. So remember that the purpose of an introduction is to give direction to your reader as to what your response will be focusing on. There are certain requirements that must be met within the intro. Typically, you work your way from general to specific. It's that inverted triangle. And remember that you have 3 jobs to accomplish in your intro. So job number 1 is introducing the topic on which you'll be writing. You can introduce it in any way that you like. Should be about 2 to 3 sentences in length. If you need any suggestions or ideas, you can combine some of these or just use one of them. It's totally up to you. So you could make a general comment about the topic and then provide a supporting comment or further explanation. You could provide a definition of the topic or keywords in your own words and then provide a supporting comment or further explanation. You could provide an explanation or interpretation of the topic or keywords. You can ask a question, which could be rhetorical or it could be a hypothetical question, and then provide a supporting comment or further explanation. Provide a real-life example that's relevant to the topic or to a keyword, and then provide a supporting comment. You could also create a simile or a metaphor, some sort of figurative device, literary device that relates or connects to the topic. You can come back to the simile or metaphor throughout the response and again in your conclusion. Job number 2 is to introduce the text, and this is the literature from class that you're choosing to write about. So be sure that you introduce the 3 T's, title, text creator, and type of literature in some way, shape, or form. Briefly summarize the text, what the text is about, in approximately 2 sentences, and be sure to touch on how the literature connects to the topic. Be sure to introduce the character you intend to discuss, and touch on how the character connects to the topic. Hey, need some help? Here's an example. The idea of an individual's actions affecting the lives of others, so that's our topic, is explored in the film One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, created by filmmaker Milos Forman. The film explores how the actions of the protagonist, Randall and Patrick McMurphy, have a profound impact on the lives of the men living at the mental hospital by increasing their confidence and self-worth. specifically Chief Bromden, Charlie Cheswick, and finally Billy Bibbit. And then job number 3, introduce your theme, thesis, or controlling idea. And you want to always ensure that you are effectively addressing the topic and saying something important about it. Give us the so what. Complete your thought. Now, once you've gone ahead and proven your idea in the body of the response, it's time to move into the conclusion and really wrap things up. So remember that you never want to introduce anything new in the conclusion. If there's something that you think about when you're writing it and you're like, oh, I need to talk about this, find where it belongs in the actual response up in the body and put it there. Now, there are certain requirements that must be met within the conclusion. Typically, you're working your way from specific to general. It's the opposite of the introduction. So it's the triangle like this. And remember that you have 2 jobs to accomplish in the conclusion. Now, before that, you want to make sure that you always start with the concluding word of some sort that's inviting closure to the response, such as, in the end, there is no doubt that, it is clear that, in summary, to conclude, through an exploration of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, it can be concluded that, right? Anything along those lines. So, job number 1, you're going to restate your theme, thesis, controlling idea in different words and specifically touch on some of the main points and details from the body paragraphs. This does not have to be very long. We're talking like 3 to 4 sentences in total. When you're restating your theme, thesis, or controlling idea, please use different words. Don't just copy and paste it. Remember the reverse inversion trick. Look at the order that you introduced your theme, thesis, controlling idea in the intro, and now restate your ideas in the opposite order. By touching on the last part of this idea first and the first part of the idea last, this will avoid simply restating the exact same thing in the exact same order. You want to specifically touch on and summarize details from the texts that you've discussed in the body paragraphs that support your idea. Basically, summarize how your supporting evidence proves your point. If you chose to discuss the nonfiction excerpt that Alberta Learning provided in a body paragraph, feel free to briefly restate your thoughts about it. And if you chose to write about a personal connection, feel free to briefly restate your thoughts on that as you're bringing closure to your response. And of course, feel free to restate the title of the text or the text creator. And your second job at the conclusion is a global view or universal discussion of your theme, thesis, controlling idea. Bring closure to your whole literary exploration by making some general comments about how your idea applies to all people in all times, in all places. What does the text and topic make you think about in terms of the world around you, the past, today, the future? Feel free to discuss specific events from the world around you as supporting evidence or speak generally. Try to generalize beyond the text and beyond yourself to reflect on the nature of the human condition. Generalize about your theme, thesis, controlling idea to bring closure. If you began your literary exploration with a metaphor, a real-life example from history or today, or a question, come back to it here and now, which frames your entire response. So now, it's time to practice. So for these topics below, okay, so we've got, and it's always, what is your opinion of the idea that? Our self-confidence influences the decisions we make. Individuals experience moments that change the course of their lives. Self-reliance is an important human characteristic. Perseverance is an essential human quality. An individual's life can be altered by a particular experience, and the past has a significant impact upon an individual. So for each of those topics, try to ask yourself, which text would I use to address that? Which character or characters? What would my argument, thesis, controlling idea be? And how would I support it? Going through and working through this planning process, this practicing of it, is the best way to ensure that you are able to quickly, efficiently, and effectively craft a literary exploration. So that wraps it up for our session on the literary exploration. Make sure to do your practicing, and I'll see you in our next session on persuasive writing in context.